Hi guys, I'm back again today with why you should thank the British for their inventions in science. So, let's learn some of the inventions and science that Britain has contributed to the world because I don't think I know of any. Maybe we do know, but we don't know that it's from the British or the Brits. I don't even know if I can say that. But anyways, yeah. Let's go straight into the video. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's get it.
What did the Romans, sorry, British, ever do for us
British.
scientifically?
Apart from the sanitation, the medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, a fresh water system, and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us?
Nowadays, our education system regards the British as brutal colonists who enslaved populations, subjugated the world. Out of roughly 200 countries in the world today, the Brits colonised, settled, or invaded about 90% of them, which I think is fairly impressive, or at least I think the Romans.
I mean, I did come from a country that was colonized by the British. Ghana. So obviously we use the British standard English, like color, COLOUR. And when I came here to the Philippines, we use American Standard English. And yeah, my essays were just always wrong. I don't know why exactly. Like, it's crazy why the teachers never told me why it was wrong. Like in my papers, they would just circle because circle for us is like wrong, right? So they'll just circle it and spell it out. And I'm like, what kind of sorcery is this universe that I landed in? Like, why is my spelling wrong? I mean, I'm not the biggest speller, right? But I thought I was going crazy for some time. For a long time actually, maybe years. I think I was going crazy because I didn't understand what was happening. I was thinking everybody was getting it wrong and all that because my teachers will write on the board and I was like, there's something off about the way that these people spell things and it didn't click right until the longest time. Um I don't know how long. And then I don't even know how I figured it out. Maybe it was a video on YouTube. And then I think they were talking about the differences of British and America or something like that. And then I was like, oh, spelling of these words. And then it clicked. I was like, that's why I keep getting these letters or I mean spelling wrong because freaking da da da. And then I was like, why didn't my teachers ever tell me? Like, are they dumb? Like, you can clearly see I'm spelling it in a British way. Why are you not correcting me? Why are you just giving it to me wrong? I mean, it's literally correct because like my whole essay is gonna be in British standard, so it's correct. Like, duh, you can just say on the paper, like you can just correct it and be like, oh, you are spelling it in a British way. Um, like read a book or something, or just tell me. Like, what the fudge? I'm coming back with papers and I'm like, nah, I'm in a simulation. But anyways, let me shut up and let's watch this video. Sorry. I was
Romans would think it was impressive. But would we have been better off without those bastard Brits? Now, as it happens, they may have some redeeming features. If you look at their scientific contribution at least. Now, this is a slightly different video to normal, and I'm going to talk about the British scientific and technological achievements and inventions, even though I could mention trivial things like the British invention of some of the best countries in the world, like Australia, Canada, Singapore, New Zealand, America. Well, maybe not invented, but they were certainly highly influenced. Or even the only decent country in the Middle East, which is Israel, courtesy of Mr. Balfour, and many other countries have a great deal to be proud of, such as Malaya, South Africa, Fiji, Kenya, Botswana, Sri Lanka, India, all
Oh,
wonderful
Malaysia, interesting.
British creations. But we're a science channel and we're going to look at science. Now, the list is long of scientific achievements, and I'm only going to look at the really big ones and some of the more important ones. Let's start. Let's start with transport and engines. So the British invented the railways, steel tracks, railway locomotives. In fact, wherever the British went, railways followed. So they put in railways in Germany, India, South America, and of course everybody copied that. Then we have the modern bicycle, initially called the Rover Safety Bicycle apparently, chain drive, caster steering and relatively small wheels, invented by the Rover Company. In fact, in Poland, the word for bicycle is Rover. And yes, it's the same company that makes Land Rovers. Now, the British obviously invented the first engines, which was the steam engine, and that broke us free from back-breaking animal and human-powered devices. Now, while the British were inventing the steam engine, they of course had to invent the piston, and more importantly, the piston ring that seals the piston, a truly remarkable technological invention which is even now being developed further. And the
Okay, I don't
piston
know.
ring is the basis for petrol engines
Okay,
and diesel engines, in fact.
because I was lost. I was like, what is this contraption made for? Okay, he told us.
And the piston ring is the basis for petrol engines and diesel engines, in fact, virtually every engine. So no Brits, no engines. Next, they invented the first engine-powered ships, obviously steam-powered. Ships' propellers, steel ships, the steam turbine, initially for powering ships, but now it powers the generators in every coal electricity generating plant and every nuclear generating plant. So that's about 50% of all the electricity that's generated today, all courtesy of Mr. Parsons. Then we have the jet engine. Yes, the Germans independently invented it in the Second World War. The turboprop engine, invented by the Brits, the first turboprop aircraft. So if you don't fly in an airplane
Rolls
powered by a
Royce.
jet engine, which was largely due to the Brits, it's a turboprop airplane, which was invented by the Brits. And of course, the turboprop is the basis of the gas turbine, which is used to generate another 20% of the world's electricity. We also have the modern car layout, front drive, transverse engine, independent suspension.
Well, we can see the pattern here. The Brits really love their transportation, don't they? They love their transportation. So thank you, because if it wasn't for you guys, we would be walking mountains, swimming across the sea, obviously impossible. So thank you very much.
Suspension CV joints on the front wheels. Before that, companies tried all sorts of arrangements. So, for example, the Germans famously had the engine and everything at the back, but since 1959, most cars use the mini minor equivalent.
Minor.
Ever been on a vehicle that uses steel wheels? Pretty uncomfortable. But don't worry, the Brits invented the pneumatic tyre. So it looks like the British have invented pretty much everything that runs on the road.
And on sea.
They didn't invent the
Ish.
road, that's just about it.
Ish.
Well,
ish,
actually, they
ish.
did. Tarmac roads, or tarmacadam, was invented by a Scot and a Welshman. Then we have steel bridges. And here's a very interesting one, the modern traffic roundabout in the 1960s. Now, you might think,
Roundabouts, very British. Well, what I've noticed again is the British people like to go from point A to B. They like mending. They like bringing this and this together, right? The bridge, you go from A to B. Bicycle, A to B, right? Like they like making things. Okay, that was weird.
here's a very interesting one, the modern traffic roundabout in the 1960s. Now, you might think that roundabouts have been around since way before the 1960s, but the Brits had the inspired idea of changing the rules for the roundabout. In other words, yield to enter, which massively
Cute.
increases the efficiency of the roundabout. Then we have the cat's eye reflector. Caterpillar tracks, which the Brits invented just before they invented the tank. So there's much more we could talk about in terms of transport technology, but we must move on to other industrial and technological stuff. Now, of course, Britain famously started the Industrial Revolution in the 18th and 19th century, and it's debated why it started in the United Kingdom, but clearly there was something special going on that made that spark. And of course, it started in the textile and agricultural industry. In the textiles, they invented the flying shuttle, powered looms, the spinning mill for making threads. In fact, if you didn't have the Brits, you don't have the very fine modern clothing which we have now, which is also incredibly cheap compared with what it used to be. In the agricultural industries, there are all sorts of mechanical devices like the mechanical seed drill, the haymaking threshing machine, but also really important things like phosphate fertilizer production, selective breeding. But that's just the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. If you're going to have an Industrial Revolution, you need a big build buildings. And so the British gave us Portland cement, a revolutionary type of cement. Where would we be without it? Then we have things like steel boring machines, which led to the steel, the modern lathe, which is ubiquitous in metal cutting. Hyper-accurate machines for measuring things, the micrometer, for instance. You cannot have modern engineering unless you have hyperfine methods for measuring things. We have stainless steel, the production of polyethylene, very famous practice, plastic used in just about everything. The steel hammer for forging steel and making it much stronger. The Bessemer steel process, the first mass production of steel, much strong thing.
Looking at this, I just remember my chemistry class. This is the only subject in chemistry that I understood for some reason. I don't remember, but the breaking down of the atoms or whatever shenanigans we were doing back in the days, that's the only part of chemistry that I understood. And I don't know why. My brain is so selective sometimes, like it could understand the stupidest things and like the easiest, simplest thing, my brain is like, nah, I don't care about you. I want the most complex thing ever, and then I want to understand that. Dumb. So when it got to this part of chemistry, I was like nailing it. For some reason, they even gave me science as like a subject to teach. I was like, you guys are dumb. But anyways, yeah, science is not my forte. Do not. But yeah, it was so weird. I don't even remember what that means, to be honest.
The steel hammer for forging steel and making it much stronger. The Bessemer steel process, the first mass production of steel
That is
effectively, and
interesting.
then
I
the
want to
mass
watch.
production of glass
I just
using
want to watch people like break steel or form steel into something. It's just fascinating. Do you ever watch that? Like people that, yeah,
the now ubiquitous
swordsman,
virtually
whatever they're called.
tin flotation method. All right, let's go a little bit electrical. So the first
Electric
long
engineering.
distance communication cables were invented by the Brits, the coaxial cable. This was used for underwater cables to link the
Ooh.
UK to America and other places. The first intercontinental communication, the birth of the internet in a sense. It was the first time that we could communicate all around the world.
That's why we're doing
The
this right now.
telephone, Alexander Graham Bell was a
Use
Scotsman.
this.
The television, liquid crystal, cavity magnetron. You've
Yep,
never
this
heard of the
one.
cavity? It's in your microwave, but probably more importantly, the first radars to a large extent used the cavity magnetron, which was a revolution. Then if we go a little bit medical, we've got CAT scanners, ultrasound scanners, the first town to have chlorinated water.
Ooh.
How about the first electronic programmable computer to crack German codes in the Second World War? Accurate navigation using highly accurate clocks, the chronometers, and the first workable atomic clock. Then we have the World Wide Web, a
Mm.
gas stove, tin cans, and a really big one, I know you've been wondering where I get to this one,
What?
an alarm clock
Oh.
that makes tea. Again,
Can we have an alarm clock that makes coffee? I am going to be awake. I am going. That is a smart invention. That's the best invention ever. But I need one that makes coffee. Like it would just like and then coffee's made and you can smell it and you just wake up and you just have your cup of coffee. Maybe there is one out there and I just don't know about it. Now I'm gonna Google.
I could have added many, many more things, but let's go on to fundamental science, the stuff that all other science and technology actually depends upon.
Mm.
But before we do that, maybe just like and subscribe. How about the discovery of the proton, neutron, and electron, the three
Talking
building blocks
about.
of, well, frankly, just about everything, all discovered by Brits. And the Brits also discovered the opposite of matter, which is antimatter, by Paul Dirac. And more recently, the last particle in the standard physics model of just about everything, the Higgs boson, which was proposed by Peter Biggs. Now let's go a little bit bigger, but not a great deal bigger. The atom, the model of the atom with a hard nucleus with the electrons flying around, was essentially discovered by the British.
I
And I'm
always.
being a little bit loose there because there is a famous New Zealander involved with this. But
Oh.
frankly, in those days, Kiwis were basically Brits. What about biology? Well, in my view, the two biggest advances in biology were both discovered by Brits. The first one is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution.
I I know this. I think I read this. Charles Darwin's I think this was one of my because every month, yeah, our school, every month we had to do like a book report. For some reason, I gravitate. You see, I gravitate towards the weirdest things. I could literally take like, I don't know, The Little Prince, and I'll be happy. But I go for a stupid thing. It's not stupid. Confusing concepts that I don't even know how my young brain was understanding all these shenanigans. Even my old brain doesn't understand. So what was I thinking back in the days, right? I did this one and I did ugh, the communist one. I don't know. Okay, do not judge me. My brain was just dumb.
And then you have the discovery
What
of
was
the
I
structure of
thinking?
DNA at Cambridge
What
University.
I want to know
Fund
is I want to find those book reports. I want to know what I was writing. Probably all Wikipedia copy pastes, to be honest.
discovery of the structure of DNA at Cambridge University. Fundamental molecular biology, of which the whole DNA revolution has been based on. And yes, I know Watson was an American and Wilkins was a Kiwi. Anyway, of course, the discovery of the structure meant this explosion in growth of the whole DNA industry, effectively, such as DNA fingerprinting, now
Mm.
invented by the Brits. Now let's go back to more basic, very fundamental, and possibly more important medicine. We have antiseptics, antibiotics,
Mm.
vaccines, all three invented by Brits. But let's go back to physics now. So we have Newton's laws of motion, Newton's laws of gravity. Where would we be without Sir Isaac Newton? We essentially couldn't
Physics,
predict
I remember.
anything.
I don't know
Back
why I
on to
never
the
get
physics, the
physics.
laws of optics and the way that
I don't know.
radio
I'm so
waves
dumb.
travel, light, the laws of electromagnetic propagation in signals and wires.
It's
So,
so weird. Like, I can never understand physics. I mean, there is a formula, yes, we use that, but I don't know. I was just always baffled in my physics class. I think my face in physics was always like, English. I was always like, what the fudge are we talking about? Like, I never understood. Like, chemistry was fine. Biology, okay, fine. Whatever. Um, but physics, I was always like, eh, what are we doing?
Scotsman James Clerk Maxwell's. You don't have any mobile phones or computers or communication cables without Maxwell. And then we have electromagnetic induction from Michael Faraday's. If you don't understand magnetic induction, there are no electric motors, there's no electric generators.
Like the
Basically, the whole
induction
backbone
stove.
of the electricity system, you owe it to the Brits. Or in mathematics, and there are a lot here, so I'm going to pick the really big one, which is the invention of calculus. Yes,
Oh, God of
there was another
mercy. These are the two people I have to blame then. These are the two people I have to blame. I see your faces, okay? Okay. Freaking sine, cosine, and all that tangent bull crap. But thank you. But why do we have to suffer? Like, use those formulas to invent stuff, but why do we have to suffer? Freaking calculus. And what is that subject even? Why are numbers and symbols and letters all mixed up, making who God knows what? How is tangent, cosine, angle of the radians equals XYZ my business? Like, I don't care. I do not care. So why am I involved, right? Why drag me into your shenanigans, you two? Like, go figure it out. Don't involve us, okay? Ugh, nah. The only math I understand is statistics. That's it. Like, everything else, you can go. Algebra, go. Calculus, the worst math in the entire world.
guy called
If you're good
Leibniz
at
who
this, let
also
me know in the
invented it at the
comments.
same time. But essentially, Newtonian calculus is at the basis of a huge amount of advanced science of engineering. It's as fundamental as algebra and arithmetic. Now, list is not complete. There are literally a zillion other things that the Brits have contributed to.
Oh, it shouldn't have.
Actually, there is just one more:
What?
the Flushing loo.
Okay, that one makes
Now,
sense.
obviously, much of what those British scientists did was based on other scientists from lots of other countries, and the Brits were just part of this magnificent thing which we call Western civilization.
Hmm.
Of course, there were French and there were Germans, and the scientific development and advancement then spread to the United States and now to the Far East. But the contribution of the Brits were utterly fundamental on so many levels. Now, without those advancements, our lives would be short, harsh, and frankly, just bloody horrible. The world's population would still be about 1 billion, which is what it was in about 1800, rather than the roughly 8 billion that it is today without that wonderful science and technology. Now, if you add up all the bad things that the Brits may have done, the Enritza massacre, the Bengal famine, and all the other bad things that happened, albeit only occasionally considering the attitudes of the times. But even if you add all those up, it's not a drop in the bucket compared with what has been achieved and the lives that have saved. How many lives, how many babies, children was saved
Okay, you can
by
say that.
antibiotics and antiseptics, clean water, or the uses of electricity, communications and transport? Famines are effectively a thing of the past because, well, for one reason, we can ship food around from one place to another very, very easily. Now, look, it turns out that I was born in England, and even though I'm an Aussie, so I am biased. But I don't think it makes sense to be proud of what your ancestors did or were unless there's some evidence that you carry on those ideas, values, and traditions. But even if you don't measure up to those ancestors or other people's ancestors, it's just bad form not to appreciate what those people did for us. The contribution of the Brits was truly incredible, and we should all be grateful that they came along and did more than virtually any other group to pull humanity out of the appalling, difficult lives that existed before the 1800s. So, do you think the ledger for those bastard Brits, is it positive or negative?
I mean, it's good to appreciate the positives, and it's also good to recognize the negatives so that we can like learn something from the negatives and change, right? obviously colonizing a country once upon a time, not necessarily the best thing, just because of the sufferings that those people went through, right? But the way that that is affecting our modern society now is like obviously what is happening in the UK right now, or England specifically. Um, they are now wanting the immigrants to leave their country, and they're saying, oh, you're stealing our jobs and all that. But that is also a consequence to being colonized, right? Like you colonize those countries, and then obviously the immigration law will favor the countries that were colonized. So they come to your country because you stole all their resources once upon a time. So now they have none, and you guys use their resources to invent in your country, and you have more jobs. So they come, and then obviously, so yeah, and then you cannot complain now. Like, do we get where we're going? But anyways, those, but we should not fail to recognize that those actually are helping us in our day and age, and they were great inventions. They're great because they're helping everyone. But let's not also fail to recognize that the what we did in the past has its consequences, and we cannot like just let that go and be like, oh, we colonize our country and blah blah blah, and we don't want you in our country after all that we've done to your country. Like it's you cannot say that, right? But thank you for all the inventions. I do appreciate them actually really really much. Your inventions to science, engineering, technology, and all. Education. Merci beaucoup. I don't know why I'm speaking French, but thank you very much. So yeah, I'll see you in our next video. I don't know if I'll upload tomorrow, but we'll see. Just click the bell button so you know when I do upload. And sorry if this has been a very very long video, but I had so many things to say. I miss you guys so much. So when I'm talkative, it's just that I want to talk to you guys. I have no friends, and you are my only friend. So yeah, yeah. Sorry.